The urban transit conundrum. We grade the Canadian cities that do public transit well and not so well. Also, urban transit numbers from around the world. I'm Affan Chowdhry. Welcome to Globe Now. Transit in a lot of Canadian cities leaves something to be desired. Most of our public transit systems need upgrading and fine-tuning as they age and expand. And recently, that kind of maintenance led to some frustration in Vancouver. The SkyTrain was abruptly shut down from 12:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. The mishap was blamed on a mistake by an electrician installing a circuit breaker. It left many riders stranded on the elevated tracks. Well, they aren't the only frustrated riders. Complaining about transit has become a national pastime. Joining us now is Grescoe, author of Straphanger, Saving Our Cities and Ourselves from the Automobile. We've reached him in Montreal. Welcome, Terrace.
Thanks.
We hear about frustrated public transit riders. Is that frustration valid?
It is valid, especially in Canada. We have incredibly high transit ridership compared to the United States. Our transit ridership is twice per capita what it is in the United States. So we have buy-in from the public. We use public transportation here in Canada. The problem is our major cities have fallen far behind in planning and building new transit.
We'll talk about the cities that have fallen behind, but let's talk about the public transit gold star in Canada. Who is it?
I've identified Vancouver as the best, and it's interesting because transit scholars around the world look to Vancouver as a model, not only for its SkyTrain and Canada line, which is a sort of heavy hauling light rail system on elevated tracks, but also for things like the Broadway B99 bus, which takes tens of thousands of people to UBC on an express bus route.
Okay, Terrace, you've mentioned the gold star. Who are the laggards?
The laggards, unfortunately, are Canada's two largest cities, Montreal and Toronto. In these cities, commute times for both drivers and transit users are among the longest in Europe and North America. And that's happened because we haven't been planning for transit for the future. You need to think in about a 20-year time frame when you're thinking about transit. We've done exactly the opposite. We've had no new thinking on a regional or local basis about transit. It's just, sort of patchwork things that solve little problems. We have to be thinking about the future now.
Now, we're talking about the Vancouvers, Torontos, and Montreals, but any hidden gems in Canada when it comes to other cities?
Yeah, interestingly enough, Kitchener-Waterloo has built a $800 million light rail system. It's going to be using Bombardier vehicles, these beautiful low-floor streetcars. And they've really thought hard about serving the needs of the region, both the suburbs and the central cities.
So Terrace, why isn't more being done in terms of public transit?
First and most crucially, there's a lack of federal support. Basically, the federal government comes in on an ad hoc basis to give money to certain projects, but there's no consistent revenue fund at the federal level. The provincial level is just as bad in most cases. So the cities are left to shoulder the responsibility. And too often, they're kind of balkanized in Canada. What we lack is regional planning. Vancouver does this very well. It's got TransLink, which has responsibility for the entire region. Unfortunately, other Canadian cities have a variety of jurisdictions, and so there are political issues, especially between the suburbs and the central city.
Is there one global city, Terrace, that used to be like a Toronto or Montreal and got its act together?
Shanghai, impressively, built an entire subway system in 20 years, now has the largest subway system in the world. It's going to have 22 lines by the year 2020. They did this, of course, because they were able to do long-term planning. It's not a democracy. A democracy that did it quite well was Bogota in Colombia, where a populist mayor built a bus rapid transit system that carries as many people as a subway. It's like a subway on the street. This was done very quickly in 3 years. So there's hope, even if the parameters are rather short-term.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much, Terrace. Appreciate it.
A pleasure.
Well, we want to hear from you. How do you rate the public transit system in your city? What could your city do better or differently? Tweet us at Globe Now. Well, it's always good to measure yourself up to the competition. So we took Toronto's transit system and compared it to other global cities. The results may surprise you, as the Globe's Madeleine White reports.
Toronto. Not only is it Canada's biggest city, but it's also one of its busiest, especially when it comes to public transit during rush hour. But how does Toronto's subway system stack up against its international counterparts? Well, New York's subway system is 373 kilometers long, and over 6,000 trains travel on those tracks and stop at its 421 stations. and that helps about 5 million people get around the boroughs every day. Tokyo is another city known for its metro. The Tokyo system measures 195 kilometers, and it has 179 stations. In 2012, there were 2,773 trains, and many of those cars were female only. That may have helped women feel safer in the subways, but no less jammed. So exactly how many people does that system move? The most recent numbers from 2011 say it's around 6.22 million people a day. London's Underground is also considered one of the busiest subway systems in the world. Its ridership in 2012 was over 1 billion people, although that was probably a little bit inflated by the 2012 Olympics. Nevertheless, the tube boasts some of the most famous riders, like the Queen, Charles and Camilla, and Kate. Oh, and the Queen again. So, what are Toronto's subway numbers? Well, it stretches only 68 kilometers and has 74 stations. That's including Scarborough's rapid transit line. And given that it covers less ground and has fewer stops, it's probably no surprise that its ridership is also significantly less than London's, New York's, and Tokyo's. In 2013, Toronto's subways moved only 310 million people.
Well, that's all for today's show. If you've got a moment, hop onto Twitter. In your travels around the world, whose transit system impressed you the most? Tweet us at Globe Now. I'm Affan Chowdhry. Thanks for watching.